Hey guys, welcome back to the channel to Penguin Powered Gaming. Today is a special day as it is the first day of the 1.41 release patch for Civilization, as well as the Brush and Blade expansion. So in June we will, or this month rather, we get Japan, and then in July, if you buy the DLC, you also get Korea. So that's very exciting. Anytime we get a new Civilization pack, new content for the game, and support for the game, that is very, very exciting, as it's really important for developers to support their games, and Firaxis, I think, does a great job of that. I think that it got a lot of... it stumbled a little bit in the beginning, but I think they're correcting their mistakes and they're doing right by the fans. I know some of you guys may disagree with that, and that's okay. I think that I have faith in Firaxis as a company, as I've been playing Civ games for many years. I've seen like Civilization 5, it kind of stumbled whenever it was first released, and now it's one of my favorite games and one of the best Civ games, and I'm sure Civ 7 will get there as well. So let's do a deep dive and kind of jump right into these patch notes. First and foremost, the very first thing they do is thank all of the fans for the overwhelming response of everyone that has been playing 1.40, the Test of Time update. I don't know what the numbers are, and I think I've kind of been looking at the Steam player counts, but they're not quite updated yet. We need to go a few more months before we can see if the player count has increased because of the update. I did see on, I think maybe it was Twitch, or not Twitch, I'm sorry, maybe it was on X. I saw where Civ had posted the number of player turns for the Test of Time update and things like that. So I'm hoping that some of you guys who have veered away from Civilization 7, that you'll come back and give it another shot, as from what I can tell, I kind of jumped into Civ 7 during the Test of Time update, so I didn't go through some of the pain, admittedly, that some of you guys did. However, I did, in previous Civ games. So I hope that you come back and give it another chance, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I've been playing it, and I've been having a ton of fun, and I can't wait to jump right into 1.41 and start playing that also. So after they thank the fans, they talk about map generation being more more realistic, more randomized, and I think they use the word less samey or something like that. So you'll definitely have more realistic maps. We have one new archipelago map type that they implemented, as well as hot seat multiplayer. I was watching the development diary, and it showed one of the devs pass a controller to I think the producer of Civilization 7, and that pained me to no end, watching I guess the default gameplay using a controller, as in my opinion Civilization has always been meant to be played with a mouse and keyboard. I understand there are console iterations. That's not how I would choose to play Civilization 7. However, I know that many of you guys do, and that's okay. As long as you're playing the game, I support that 100%. I think a superior way, in my opinion, to play Civ 7, however, is with a mouse and keyboard. So that's just my personal preference, and that's what I will continue to be utilizing for Civ games. So the major changes in this patch are the reworking governments and celebrations. There were giant sweeping changes in the Test of Time update, and now there's more giant sweeping changes coming as they continue developing this. Like, developing, I think they have a roadmap where they want to go, and this is not a quick fix, right? This is something that is going to take time and testing, and then community feedback, and they'll adjust and tweak as they see fit. But I think the end result is going to be a really good game. Now, let's see. Here, if you buy the DLC, which I bought mine earlier, as soon as it was available, and then you get the Japan Toyotomi Hideyoshi, as well as the 2 Japanese civilizations, the Heian and the Sengoku. You get those instantly, and then later next month in July, you'll get the Korean civilizations. It also comes with, so essentially the pack comes with 2 leaders, 4 civilizations, as well as 4 new wonders. So I know there are some complaints about DLC price and things like that, but in my opinion, for everything that you get compared to other DLC content on other games, I don't think it's that bad. I think eventually there will be, as more iterations of Civ 7 comes out, there will be discounts on Steam sales, or there will be like a definitive edition eventually with expansions and things like that. But if you're itching to add more and have kind of the latest and greatest Civ 7 experience, I recommend supporting the company. If you believe in Firaxis like I do, I think that supporting the company and just goes a long way. You know, I see a lot of people kind of complaining a lot on the Steam forums, as well as Reddit and things like that, even on YouTube. If you want the game to be the best it can be, support the company with your wallet. That's the best way that you're going to have a better Civ game. That's how you're going to get new downloadable content. That's how you're going to get new expansions. So please support the company, support the devs. As I think they're trying their best to do right by the community and make a terrific game that we all love. All right, so they do recommend that they do recommend not utilizing mods in the patches, at least until the modding community has updated their mods. And so in doing so, they've actually disabled the mods as the patch applies. So all of your mods are going to be disabled. You can try to re-enable them. Some may work, some may not. You know, that's to be determined. I personally don't really play with mods, so that doesn't necessarily affect me. Always update your drivers, check minimum system requirements, things like that. So all of these are just kind of basic type things. Hot seat multiplayer was a huge one in this update. I think I talked about that a little bit on whenever I mentioned controllers, but playing mouse and keyboard sitting at the same computer and then taking turns is a great way to play hot seat multiplayer with your family. As well as, for example, if you're playing on the Switch, if you're sitting on the couch, you can pass the controller back and forth between children, or between mom and dad, things like that. That is a fantastic way to play and kind of keep the whole family involved. And so I really do support that as well. This is the new map type. They also have the map type that this is replacing. They have that as a selectable option as well. So you're going to get more kind of realistic looking rivers, more realistic lakes and things like that on the archipelago map. So one of the biggest changes is happiness, governments, and celebrations. So now there is a thing called local happiness instead of overarching happiness, right? So before you kind of had local happiness, but it wasn't, you didn't really get any added benefits from excess happiness. You just didn't want it to be unhappy, right? So now there's stages. These stages range from ecstatic, which is 40 or more happiness, joyous, happy, unhappy, and angry. And some of your government types that you pick are very specifically related to this happiness. And we'll kind of go over that in just a moment. Let's see. So players getting celebrations have changed quite a bit. One of the things that to note is that it went from 10 turns for a celebration all the way down to 6, because there's going to be, because of the change in happiness, the devs say that they noticed a lot of players in their playstyles were essentially in celebrations the entire game, and they're trying to prevent that. They're trying to make celebrations to feel more special, where you have to really work to be in a celebration, and you're not using your citizens aren't celebrating the entire time and getting drunk and partying excessively. So they also say that they're going to really watch this very closely and look at the stats and see how it feels. And they ask, that you let them know what your feedback is. They always ask for your feedback, and they want to know if this seems to be working okay. If not, maybe they may tweak it a little, but right now that's kind of the state of things. And I think it's probably a good change, but I'm going to reserve some of my thoughts on that until I actually get a little more game time under my belt and able to play it a little more. Crisis changes. They say that they never really like to remove things from the game. However, let's see. Here we generally prefer improving content over removing it. One crisis was creating more friction than meaningful gameplay, and that's the Revolutions crisis from the Exploration Age. So this has actually been removed. No longer appear in Exploration Age or be available as a toggleable that's hard to say, crisis and advanced setup. Alright, so that was obviously causing an issue, and so I think that they say they're going to continue working on some of the crises, because some of them, frankly, you just kind of ignore. Like a volcano erupts, it burns some of your farms. You might spend 25 gold, or you might spend 1 turn fixing that. It's not that huge of a deal. So they will probably continue to tweak different stages and types of crises, so that they're more of an integral part of your game. And if you don't like it, you can always turn those off. That's always an option. So here in the Brush and Blade, you get starting today, you can get the new leader, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. There's new civilizations, and then the 4 new wonders. And it actually explains kind of what those are. You can go down here. He is a militaristic and cultural leader. He has the Great Unifier ability. So essentially, his units deal double damage, but you also take double damage. So he's kind of like a glass cannon. And from what I've seen so far, it's very easy to get your units killed. Not meaning to, as you're taking double damage. So I'm not sure how, on a tier list, I'm not sure how high he's going to be just yet. I think you have to be a fast-acting, hard-hitting, like very aggressive player with him to benefit from that ability, and not be too defensive. His agenda is to increase relationship with civilizations that have a minimum amount of land units and overall cultural yield, and decrease relationship with civilizations that don't meet these minimums. Alright, so essentially, if you, that have a minimum amount of land units and overall cultural yield. So if you have probably an army and you have high culture, then he's going to like you. If you are weak, then my guess is, and you don't have a lot of culture, he's probably going to try to go to war with you. These are our 4 civilizations. Today you get the Heian Japan, and their apex age is the Antiquity. You get the attributes is cultural and diplomatic. They have the unique ability of Pure Land with a Tier 1 Antiquity age, which is their apex. Again, increased culture on improvements on breathtaking tiles. So that's really cool. I like the fact that anything that you can do to increase culture on breathtaking tiles or increase any type of stat on a breathtaking tile, I really like. That's really cool. So because you're usually looking for those breathtaking tiles to settle. You also, in the exploration age, you get further increased culture on those tiles. And in the modern age, more culture on improvements on breathtaking tiles, and cities receive a set of tourism per breathtaking tile once they contain a minimum number of them. The unique civilian unit is a great person, trainable in settlements. You also get a military unit that's unique, the Yumi. Increased movement, increased combat strength if this unit has not moved this turn. So that's really interesting, because if you are playing as Toyotomi, you're not going to want to play defensively. You're going to want to move. So that's I'm not sure how that works. I'm going to have to play around with that a little bit, I think. And then the Hudo wonders provide increased appeal to adjust tiles. Breathtaking tiles receive increased production. So the Heian Japan receives increased production towards constructing this wonder. So if you're playing as Toyotomi and you're playing as this civilization, then you will get increased production. I think it's like 30%, but I could be wrong. And then the other one, Sengoku Japan, the apex age is exploration. So it is diplomatic and militaristic, so it's more warlike. The unique ability is the Tier 1 Antiquity age, which has increased culture and science per point of Army Commander XP earned. Culture buildings are no longer receive adjacencies with mountains. Science buildings no longer receive adjacencies with resources. So that's kind of interesting. So you get increased culture and science per point of Army Commander XP earned. So that means you're going to want to be at war. You're going to want to be at war a lot. So which probably works really well with Toyotomi. The exploration age, further increased culture and science and increased influence per building of Army Commander XP, so you get more. And then culture buildings no longer receive adjacencies with mountains, science buildings. So essentially, your building bonuses are going to get worse. And if you're a war, if you like war, if you really want to play a civilization that benefits from going to war, it would be the Sengoku Japan. And then in the modern age, even further increased culture and science and further increased influence per point of Army Commander XP. And now culture buildings no longer receive adjacencies with mountains, science buildings with resources. So that's kind of definitely a warlike civ that might give civs like Genghis Khan a run for his money, or civs like the Han Empire or something like that. The unique civilian unit Shinobi. I think in the if you watch the dev trailer, you could see like these ninjas like throwing down smoke bombs and disappear. That's what these guys are. So it has a set number of charges to use as a sabotage action, which forces an army commander to respawn. Has the stealth ability. Military units on the same tile can use the Disperse Shinobi clan action to remove these units. Okay, so stealth abilities were really cool. And forcing an army commander to respawn, that's super cool. I guess that's kind of like an assassination, maybe. Unique military unit, the Samurai. Has increased combat strength, which makes sense. Does not unlock further tiers in the technology tree. By defeating set number of units, the unit automatically upgrades to a second and third tier. And then the associated wonder is the Himeji Castle. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly. Increased culture to fortified districts in the settlement. So that's cool. Increased combat strength to fortified districts in all settlements. Acts as a fortified district that must be conquered. Must be placed on rough terrain. Okay, so this is a really nice wonder if you want defensive capability. That's going to be tough to crack. And here are the 4 wonders that you get with Brush and Blade. So you get this wonder, which is increased happiness. It scales by age. Increased production towards cavalry units, which is super nice. Okay. Oh, this is a natural wonder. Okay, here is another natural wonder, Nachi Falls. Increased culture, scales by age, can purchase 2 happiness buildings for free each age if Nachi Falls is in the territory of at least one of your settlements. Okay, so this actually lets you purchase happiness buildings. That's really cool. I like that. And then there's an antiquity age wonder. So an early wonder. Let's see, Muriuska. Increased happiness, increased culture and production to all districts that have an antiquity building, and at least 1 happiness in the settlement. So that is an overall good wonder. Increased happiness, increased culture, and production. All you need to have is at least 1 happiness. So that's super nice. And then the other wonder, it looks like there's no exploration wonder, but there is a modern one. Niriyama Reverberatory Furnace. Increased production, increased science on mines in the settlement, further increased if the mines are on resources in the settlement. So that's good if you're going for like a science victory. So that's very cool. Let's see. Talks about I guess this is a picture also of each of these. So this factory looks so cool. I like these huge smokestacks with the smokes billowing out of them with a furnace. That's really cool. So let's get down into gameplay. So here's where some of the patch kind of changed a few things that they talk about. The age transition, in the number of boats kept on age transition, they changed that. You will keep 1 additional boat for each harbor in your empire. Let's see, the environment. The amount of population, buildings, and antiquity in some exploration civs have been reduced to help reduce noise to be historically, culturally appropriate. City layouts. So I was reading over this, and essentially what this does, I think, is when you're in the antiquity, the buildings really shouldn't be very structured and set out like a grid pattern. And so they're going to make that a little more randomized so that it does look like an early age civilization, whereas the exploration age, you start getting like pre-industrial revolution. Things are starting to get more laid out, with patterns and grids and things like that, and even more so once you get past the Industrial Revolution. And then here are the effects on happiness per age. I understand that 40 plus happiness is static, but then it says per age. So I need to learn a little bit more about that by just playing it. But in the antiquity age, at least, these are the numbers. If a wonder references joyous or ecstatic, these are the numbers that it's referencing, and I'm guessing that those numbers are going to be in the Civipedia. I'll have to just kind of check that, but I'm sure that it'll make its way in if it hasn't already. It probably has. Governments have changed quite a bit. So if you drill down into governments like Classical Republic, if you look what it used to have, let's see, it was 20% culture during a celebration for option 1, and it was previously 15% production towards wonders. So now that's changed quite drastically. Now there is a passive +1 culture in happy or happier settlements, +4 additional culture in joyous or happier cities. Also in option 2, there's 10% production towards wonders and 20% in joyous or happier cities during the celebration. And then for tradition, for the tradition that was added, new traditions were added or modified. This one gives +2 happiness on wonders, unlocked on citizenship. So that's kind of nice if you're playing wonder heavy. And this tradition gives +1 culture on displayed great works and joyous settlements, or +2 in ecstatic settlements unlocked on philosophy. Further down, if you look at despotism, before you would get, let's see, so you have a passive ability too, +2 science for each conquered settlement. Unhappiness causes -3% reduction in yields in your settlement per point of negative happiness, usually -5%. Pre-patch, pre-1.41, we had 20% science during a celebration that was flat, and you had 30% production towards infantry units. Now that has changed to +1 science on production and production warehouse buildings during the celebration, as well as 10% gold towards producing and purchasing military units during the celebration. The tradition that was added, or 2 traditions that was added, 20% gold towards upgrading units unlocked on tactics. I kind of like that, honestly, the 20% gold upgrading units. And then also +1 war support on wars you declare unlocked on organized military. So if you're going for warmongering, that might help you there. We have oligarchy, passive, 10% production towards buildings, 10% gold towards purchasing warehouses and fishing farming. Prior to the update, we had essentially 20% food during celebration. This was my go-to, right? I pick this all the time. Or I would do 30% production towards buildings. Now this has changed. So now it's +1 food in towns for each connected settlement during celebration. This is really important because now in the UI you actually have a change that shows you the number of connected cities. So that's this benefit is why you see that additional content or additional display in the UI. Or you can get +200 gold immediately that scales by game speed. The various traditions, +1 food on food warehouse buildings and happiness settlements, or +2 in joyous or happier settlements unlocked in public life. The other tradition that you can get, Hangzhou tradition, +1 production on production warehouse buildings and happy settlements, +2 in joyous or happier settlements unlocked. So this shows how the happiness is tied into your governments now. So I think they're really trying to make happiness feel more important, I guess, as it ties directly into your government. Exploration. In feudal monarchy, we have a 10% production towards training units and constructing walls. Previously, it was 20% food during the celebration. Now it's +3 combat strength for military units during the celebration. So that is a pretty big change. That is completely different. And then previously, on the other option for this celebration was 30% production towards cavalry and naval units. And now your highest level commander gets a free promotion. The tradition, march your lords, +2 culture in towns without a growing focus, or +4 and joyous or happier towns. So here, if you have a lot of towns that are very specialized, that might be a good one for you. The other tradition here, Maharang tradition, your capital gets +5 culture, production, and gold, or 15 culture, production, and gold if it's ecstatic. So if you have an extremely happy empire, this is going to be very nice. You're going to get 15 culture, production, and gold just for having a happier empire, and that's unlocked in sovereignty. Plutocracy has a 20% production towards overbuilding. Prior to the update, you would get 20% gold during a celebration. Now you get specialists get -2 food and happiness maintenance during the celebration. So this is an option that might go great if you're very specialist heavy. The other option, it was 30% production towards overbuilding during the celebration, and now it's 600 gold immediately. So just and that scale is by game speed. The primitive accumulation primitive accumulation tradition gives +2 science on gold buildings, 20% production towards constructing gold buildings, and unlocks on mercantilism. Man, these words are really hard to pronounce. The Tequil tradition essentially has +10 trade range. So that's kind of cool. I think the default is 30, which on land during exploration, this should give you 40. +2 science on trade routes you initiate, and unlocked on imperialism. Theocracy's passive is 20% production and gold towards constructing or purchasing temples and missionaries. The previously had 20% culture during celebration. Now it receives a free relic immediately, +1 culture and happiness on displayed relics during celebration. The other option for theocracy, previously it was 40% production towards civilian and support units during celebration. Now it's +1 gold and influence on displayed relics during the celebration. The 2 traditions that it provides, towns following your religion get +2 food and happiness, unlocked on theocracy, and also unlocked on theocracy, cities following your religion get +2 gold and influence. So if you're playing a very religious focused game, theocracy, you'll get a lot of benefit from these traditions. So moving on to modern authoritarianism, passive has +3 food and gold in settlements you have conquered in this age, and unhappiness causes -3% reduction in yields in your settlement per point of unhappiness. So generally, authoritarianism is like, if you're very warlike, that makes sense. The celebration options previously, let's see, I think this is actually a typo. It just says 30%, but essentially now you have 20% production towards training military units during the celebration. So I guess before you had 30, now you have 20. So this celebration was actually nerfed just a bit, probably to prevent authoritarianism from just running over the entire world. Celebration option number 2 previously had +3 combat strength for all units during a celebration. Now it's +2 war support on wars you declare during the celebration. The garrison state tradition has 25% influence towards adding war support, unlocked on nationalism. And the other tradition gives +5 combat strength for all military units when attacking an opponent from a different ideology, unlocked on militarism. The next government is a bureaucratic monarchy. The passive is 5% gold towards purchasing buildings and cities, or 10% in joyous or happier cities. The celebration option, previously there was 20% gold. Now it's 20% influence towards all diplomatic actions during the celebration. So instead of straight up gold, now this has been completely reworked. So now it's very much tied to diplomatic actions. The other bureaucratic celebration option previously was 30% relationship change from endeavors and sanctions during the celebration, and now it's a flat 1,000 gold immediately that scales by game speed. The two traditions in bureaucratic monarchy. The first one has 100% influence towards counter-spy espionage actions, unlocked after political theory. And then Crown Properties tradition has +2 influence on gold buildings, unlocked on globalism. The elective republic, which is our last government type under modern, the passive is specialist, gets +1 science and culture and +1 happiness maintenance. And then the first celebration option previously was 20% culture during the celebration. Now it's +1 culture on quarters and happy settlements, or +2 in joyous settlements, or +3 in ecstatic settlements during a celebration. So this also shows that the happier you are, the more benefit you're going to get from these government celebrations. So that I think that's shows that absolutely what they're trying to achieve. So happiness is very important, and how happy your cities are important. The second celebration option previously had a 20% science during the celebration. Now it has a 1,000 science immediately that scales by game speed. Think Tank's tradition gives a +10% production towards projects, or 20% in the capital, unlocked on globalism. And Army Corps of Engineers gives 10% production towards wonders, or 20% in the capital, unlocked on nationalism. So Mexico is an important civilization that the devs note that we want a powerful government that rewards strong happiness. Gameplay to be Mexicans' gameplay identity. A new shape of government means recalibrating to make sure Mexico's unique gameplay feels rewarding. If we find that this set of changes doesn't reflect that, we will buff Mexico. So essentially, they're going to be monitoring how Mexico plays, both as a player as well as how the AI plays Mexico. And so in the future, we may see a buff to Mexico. Hopefully, if they do buff Mexico, we don't see an instance where it goes too much and then they just overrun all of the other civs or something like that. But I'm sure they'll, use a scalpel and not a sword, right? So all ages, passive +2 happiness per age and cities for each tradition slot into the government. Default celebration options, +2 culture and happiness settlements, or +6 in joyous settlements. And then in antiquity, unlock celebration option, +3 food for every joyous or happier settlement during the celebration. Previously, that was 50% growth in the capital during the celebration. And then, let's see, there's also this tradition that gives +2 happiness in all settlements. Exploration has an unlocked celebration option, 100% production towards training and gold purchasing, and missionaries, and +2 charges and movement for missionaries during the celebration. Let's see, Muralismo 2 tradition gives +4 happiness in all settlements. And then in modern, you unlock the celebration option, gain 1 free infantry unit in each city immediately. Unlock celebration option 2, +2 influence in every joyous or happier settlements during the celebration. So as you unlock during the ages, as you unlock these celebrations, there will be different various options that provide different benefits. And then here are the miscellaneous. Let's see, and some of these I've already discussed, like adding a new map type, changing celebration length. They say that they're going to, very much pay attention to how some civs do compared to others, and may make changes in the future. Let's see, and then these are kind of bug fixes, right? Some of the wonders or some units weren't acting accordingly or how they should work, and so they were able to fix some of these bugs. So I always look through the bug fixes; those kind of always interest me because I want to make sure that some of the bugs that I experience are also fixed. Unfortunately, one of the bugs that I experienced the most, which is the frame rate limiter not working, and I'm not sure if that's potentially because I use the Linux client as opposed to Proton or just straight up Windows. That could be it. I'm not sure. I really want that fixed though. That kind of bugs me. I did look out on the forums and saw that someone else had complained about the frame rate limiter. So if you're experiencing that problem, I highly recommend that you post on the forums and just reiterate to the devs that this is important to you. So let's see. The Library of Ashurbanipal deduction should now properly provide a relic slot to the science buildings for newly built cities and apply in distant lands. The partisan unit from the military city-state's suzerain bonus is now buildable after reaching industrialization, and it had also addressed reported issues with unlocked dedications, sometimes missing after age transition. So for multiplayer, of course, you got Hot Seat multiplayer, and they also improved performance and stability across cross-platform multiplayer games. So I personally don't play a lot of multiplayer. That's not really why I purchase a Civilization game. However, if you do, then you should have a better, more stable experience. It talks about new content. There was some UI changes as well as like spacing, text size, things like that in the descriptions. And then here are some controller specific, like resources in the Empire and treasure tabs of the commerce screen now properly display a visual selection highlight, switching tabs in the commerce menu. So these are all like quality of life menu changes. The just one more turn option no longer appears if you choose to retire or are eliminated. That's actually a pretty big change. But I guess it shouldn't appear if you retire, and it doesn't make sense if it appears if it's eliminated, right? The controller cursor no longer gets stuck on the filter after closing it in the commerce menu. That's always a good change. The inspect button prompt now properly appears on tooltips. Let's see, address the reported issue where tooltips could get stuck on the screen after panning away. Pressing right on the D-pad immediately. So honestly, some of these, like this D-pad, like I play with a mouse and keyboard. This doesn't affect me, but if you do play with a controller, I'm sure that's a very needed change. I have my own gripes on the bugs that I'm experiencing. So for general, you have let's see, city details panel saw a major revamp, and this is a big one, right? So this was kind of glossed over, to be honest, and it's a really important change. So the city UI got a big change to it for screens where the height resolution is greater. Also, the number of connected settlements is also displayed on town focus section. So now you can see the number of connected settlements because certain governments or happiness levels directly impact that. City-states in the Miners Powers tab now display which bonus was picked. Independent powers in the Miners Powers tab now display which leaders are befriending them and whether those leaders are ahead. That is a welcome change. I've greatly, like when you're playing and you're not knowing, you have to go to the individual city-state to see who's befriending it. It's very nice to put that all in one place. Unfinished unique quarters will now highlight during placement of the second unique building. No more turns option. Let's see, that functions correctly. Added. So now it has a 1600 p UI scaling for Macs. I'm not sure how many people play on Macs, but that number's probably got to be small. Resource and yield on the map will now scale when changing UI scaling adjustment. The camera will now pan to your units when taking damage from any source when auto pan to combat is enabled. Addressed reported issues during the in-game transition where controller or mouse input could break menus. Okay. Addressed a reported issue where a non-functional just one more turn button could appear during a multiplayer victory. Yeah, that would be kind of difficult to do one more turn. I guess just play a new game. And addressed a reported issue where clicking on certain mementos while playing in German could cause a crash. That's so strange. Why would playing in a specific language cause a crash? And made various stability improvements on systems with integrated Intel graphics. Who's playing with Intel graphics? Not sure. AMD all the way. Text changes address several reported issues affecting localized text, and here's some tooltips. The victory tier tooltip is now properly appears and address the reported issues. So here are some narrative changes that was changed. There is some audio changes added. Let's see. New Antiquity Age ambience piece themed one alternative mix variation. So you're getting more like audio. Let's see, made SFX improvement to various resources, improved volume balancing on Wonder voiceovers. So they're really just tweaking different audio bugs, several miscellaneous audio bugs, volume levels, things like that. And then lastly, we have the platform specific. Now, my channel is Penguin Powered Games, and I care deeply about Linux, and Linux is not on this platform specific. So, for Access Games, if you are listening, please take note of this. I would very much appreciate continued support of Linux, the Linux launcher, such as making sure when libraries don't go out of date, things like that, and the launcher still continues to function. But my biggest complaint on the Linux launcher is the frame rate limiter, as I will have to go into the options and then click confirm changes, even when I have it already set to lock at 60 frames per second. So please take a look at that. So Windows gets an update for Intel XeSS 3.0. Oh, also in the Linux launcher, you don't have FSR 3.0. You have FSR 1. And I would like to have FSR 3.0. I'm fine with using multi-sampling anti-aliasing, but, sometimes people don't have super high-end graphic cards, and they're playing with like a 9060 or something like that, and they need they need those simulated frame rates with FSR 3, and it just looks prettier. So the Switch gets stability improvements on the Switch 2, improved C textures on discovered tiles, and addressed a reported issue with Alexander's hair, apparently, rendering in low quality. The PlayStation reduced age transition loading times on the PS4. That's good. And the Xbox reduced essentially the same thing on the Xbox One. And I think that is all of the patch notes and we've pretty much covered everything. Overall, this is a solid patch. I think they said that they're going to continue to work on, I think, diplomacy and things like that. So essentially, in 1.4, we got to play as any civ or any leader with any civ. 1.41, they enhanced happiness, they enhanced governments. I believe they said that they're looking at diplomatic options whenever you're making deals with various civ leaders in the future. So overall, so far, I'm very happy with what I've read over in the patch notes. I can't wait to, jump in and start playing and experiencing some of these changes, as I'm sure many of you are. And I hope that if you've watched this the entire time and listen to me ramble on about all these patch notes. Thank you so much. Please consider subscribing. I'll do my best to bring more content like this. As you know, I'm sure you're. To many people, this might be a little dry, but I really like reading over patch notes, as I think it's very important to understand the mechanics of a game that you love, and to just kind of support the devs. So I hope that you have a lot of fun playing with the Brush and Blade expansion that was just released, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.